All right, here we go. Hey, everybody, it's PJ Turner, executive producer and host of the Break It Down Show. Waiting on Chris Thomas King to come into the studio. In the meantime, my buddy Scott Husing is here. He's a best-selling author, and we worked together on Save the Brave. And I thought maybe we would just take a moment here, Scott, and chat about Save the Brave and leave with that because charity work is good work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be back on. It's been a while, been drilling down on a lot of stuff, but also with the nonprofit side, we've been extremely busy, and Pete's part of that with what we do in Temecula, California, at Bastards Canteen, Comedy for a Cause. We've had 4 shows with some amazing, talented comedians that donate their time, and we've raised a ton of money through that for veterans. And I tell you, man, it's time consuming, and you got to find that balance because everybody on the staff at Save the Brave does it all voluntarily. We don't take a single dime because we want all that money to go back into veteran programs. I think last year we had over 30 offshore fishing trips for veterans, 220 veterans serviced on those trips. And that's just the fishing program, which is the one formal program we have. But people throughout the country and throughout the year are connected not just through the fishing programs, but the Ride for the Brave, which we've done the last 2 years. We've got jiu-jitsu going on now. We got the Comedy for a Cause going on at Bastards in Temecula, California. And we are starting our first scholarship program this year for deserving children of veterans who committed suicide. And I think that's important, is to make sure we're taking care of the families. And, you can't save those that we lost. It's very personal to both you and I, and we know that the people that remain behind are equally as important. So it's a big part of what we do, and you are a big part of this. John is, everybody that's a part of this show, all the guests. That's the cool thing too about the Break It Down show, is somehow, some way, you suck these people in to be a part of this show, and it just, this network, man, really becomes our net worth. I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but so many great people, talented people, giving people that care. It's kind of overwhelming some days, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm proud of the work that we do at Save the Brave. By the way, here's the man, the guest, my buddy Chris Thomas King, who's dropped a new song called Andromeda Blues. It's on YouTube. All you got to do is type in Andromeda Blues, and Chris is such a icon on the blues community. It'll come right up for you. But hey, Chris, man, good to see you again. Good to talk to you again.
Great to see you, Pete.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Scott, you've not met before, but Chris Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Chris.
How you doing?
Great, man. Good to meet you, my friend.
You too.
One of the coolest things about Chris is he wrote a book about the blues, and the blues really, it's his music, right? Because he grew up in the blues. There it is, right there, the blues, the authentic narrative of my music and culture. Here's what Chris is going to do in this book when you get it, and you should get it. He's going to completely change the narrative on what you thought you knew about the history of the blues and all modern music. He's going to lay it out bit by bit, and all of these folks that have been music ethnographers, God bless, they started the work, but Chris has come in and said, here's where you missed all these points, to the point where there was I think it was a loose-limbed or a loose-jointed black man who was playing music. And that was like the birth of the blues, according to somebody. It's remarkable. I love your book, and it forced me to accept things that I thought were true that they weren't true. It forced me to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Yeah, that quote you just mentioned, that was a W.C. Handy quote. What the first time he heard the blues, he heard it from this loose jointed, guy picking the guitar somewhere in the what they call the Mississippi Delta. 100 years ago or so, But yeah, I mean, it's funny, man. It's not just blues, but so much, history is mythology. It's myths and fairy tales that people embellish, and but sometimes, at least what I found when I was researching, is truth. A lot of times is more exciting and more, it's more. Sometimes it's more unbelievable because it just don't jive with, things that you've heard or things that you know. And so I think the journey that I took, every time I uncovered a rock, I found some new things that I was curious about, and I just kept digging and kept digging and kept digging until I felt I had the truth, at least an authentic narrative, as I say in the book. But even when I found the authentic narrative, it was like, well, if I come out and say these things, I'm going to sound like a kook, people are going to dismiss it. So I had to dig some more to make sure, that that these weren't just facts, but I wasn't misquoting or misunderstanding or having things out of context. So yeah, I mean the story of American music, uh, according to my book, is has yet to be told, really. I mean, the origins of it, that is.
Yeah, yeah. We had a really great young kid. He plays the cello at the world class level. He's as good as you can be at playing the cello, and he's gonna do a show based upon the music ethnographer history. And I was like, he doesn't know yet, 'cause he's too young to know, and he's doing what he's learned. And I can't impress upon everybody how great Vladimir is at playing the cello. He's as good as anybody in the world. And he has this great intention to share this music based upon these ethnographers. But Chris, I, we got. I was like, I gotta
Well,
say,
you say ethnographers, but for other people that are listening,
yeah,
I would add folklorists.
yeah,
People like Alan Lomax, John Lomax, people like that, people that roam the South, going to prisons, going to chain gangs and things. Supposedly discovering the roots of American music. We're talking about these kinds of people, and when we talk about myth, we're talking about Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil at the crossroads in
yeah.
Mississippi at strike of midnight or something. So it's like uncovering all this mythology and getting down to what really happened. Where did this music really come from?
And if I was to just jump in and to kind of summarize how I explain your theory, and you'll correct me, of course, but you're basically like, hey, New Orleans is one of the oldest towns in America. It's been there forever. And if you were on a barge working your ass off, floating down to New Orleans to deliver a load, you got there, you got paid. What did you want to do? You wanted to go out and you wanted to fucking have a good time and listen to songs like Funky Butt and go out and touch some butts and look at some boobs and drink some booze. You didn't go there to have these great lamentations about things. You went there to fucking party, And that's what changed my like, oh my God, you're right. That's exactly what happened. These guys had money in their pocket, and there was a lot of places to go hear live music, and they weren't playing these sad songs about breaking up with people or whatever.
Yeah, well, they might have played a sad song here and there. I mean, but that goes back to ancient times. I mean, you can go back to 2,000 years ago, and somebody probably had a lute and was singing, a sad melody. So, I mean, New Orleans didn't invent sad music, but but the definition of blues when it comes to Louisiana, it's a French definition, a French Creole definition, as opposed to like the more British colonies in the northern eastern, like New York, Virginia, South Carolina, places like that. They misinterpreted what the Creoles in New Orleans had termed their music. In other words, they'll have a song called Basin Street Blues or the Jelly Roll Blues or the West End Blues, and I can name 100 other such and such a blues, 219 blues. All these songs that came out of Louisiana by Louisiana songwriters and musicians, Louis Armstrong and all these different people, Jelly Roll Morton, when they were referring to blues, they meant like sacre bleu, like French blue, like something that is how would you say holy shit, basically. Music that wasn't kosher with the church, music that wasn't kosher with polite society. This was kind of a rebellious, subversive music that they were doing, and they were having a lot of bawdy fun, with this music. But as they moved to Chicago, as they moved on to New York, to Harlem, and places like that, when they would call their music the blues, well, it had a bad, the U.S. government didn't like this music, and they had reasons to try to suppress it. So you wouldn't book a blues performer in your hall or in your, whatever, some respectable joint. So they, had to kind of put the gin in the bottle and tell everybody it was water. You know what I mean? To get to slip into the theater. But yeah, so when they say blues in Louisiana, which is where it originally came from, they meant that it was risque music, like a Dave Chappelle might be a blue comic, or Richard Pryor might be a blue comic, where you're taking this subversive material, but you're trying to enlighten people with it. You know, you're trying to communicate some truth, but you're doing it in a subversive way. So, but the word blues in the Anglo language means sad, depressed, down in the dumps.
Tired of cold.
Yeah. And what we meant as Creoles is that, you know, we're having some naughty, you know, bawdy fun this Saturday night, so you should be there.
Yeah, I've not let Scott say one word in 10 minutes, and other than the intro, and that's a record. So I'm going to let Scott ask a question.
Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated by anybody that writes a story, and as a storyteller, I like to know all the interviews you did. When you write a nonfiction piece, you have to absolutely get it right, and the fact checking. And I can attest to that personally, writing a story about war and all the hundreds of people I interviewed. If I would have gotten one thing wrong, those Marines would have eaten me for breakfast. So before I hit the big red send button, I was pretty nervous. And I'm sure in the music community, which is very small, and then the blues is this micro culture within the music community, is even smaller, kind of like the military, and then you've got the Marine Corps. So how was that process for you when you were writing the book? This is cool because these are questions people normally ask me, so I love getting a perspective from someone who wrote your story.
Yeah, well, well, the thing is, you know, you might have been writing about your experiences, you know, and you know, with a rifle in your hand and you know, that kind of thing in a foreign land or whatever. And so if you're drawing from your experiences, that's your truth. You know, you can express that how you see fit. You don't need a whole lot of citations for that, you know. But when you're talking about stuff where you weren't there, you know, but then again, nobody else was there. So it's not like you can go and interview somebody about something that happened 120 years ago, 100 years ago. You know, this blues thing kind of happened at the turn of the 19th century, you know, the early 19 teens, it began. So none of us were there. So all we can rely on, as you know, is primary sources. You know, try to go to court records, court documents, contemporary. One thing that people have probably lost memory of is that there were a lot of Black newspapers. There was hundreds of Black newspapers around the country that wrote every day or had weekly papers and things. And they wrote about people touring and coming to town to perform. In 1905 in Louisville, such and such blues, saying he's coming to town to do whatever. And so you can kind of, now that a lot of this stuff is being digitized, you can really go back and read these things, you know, look them up and kind of check and make sure that what you're saying, you know, has proper context. But there's other things that there got to be you get into some archaeology, you know, and stuff like this, because like they say that, you know, the blues came from slavery, or that there were slaves in what they called Mississippi Delta. And let me just tell you, like the thing Delta, this seems like common sense when it comes out of my mouth. But when people say Mississippi Delta, the first thing people think of is the state of Mississippi, and they think about northern Mississippi. But, you know, Mark Twain, you know, said it in his book on the Mississippi, which I quote. The scientific people say that the Delta, you know, begins from Baton Rouge down to New Orleans. That's where the river spills out and creates a delta. So, I mean, you have science, that's scientific, that's a scientific fact, that New Orleans is the Mississippi Delta, you know, beginning around Baton Rouge. But we don't think of New Orleans as Mississippi Delta, because these folklorists and these people have kind of brainwashed us to where when we hear the word Mississippi Delta, we think the state of Mississippi, northern Mississippi. And here are the facts. The facts are that that's not necessarily the Delta. That might be the up there around Arkansas, Clarksdale and stuff, or lower Memphis, below Memphis. That might be more of the Mississippi Valley, maybe. But the Delta is what spills out and creates this new land. And that's definitely what New Orleans is, because it's sinking as we speak. But so you have science on some of this was just going back and getting away from all of these fairy tales and truisms and kind of trying to look them up.
So in addition to musicians, Chris has got historians and cartographers picking apart his work and be like checking it for accuracy. So that's a lot.
It's hard to argue with somebody who says that the Mississippi Delta is down here in South Louisiana. I mean, how can you argue with that?
Yeah.
No.
So some facts you just need to remind people, kind of snap them out of their hypnosis, that these folklorists, they did a real good job, But then you want to find out, well, why did they do this? Why did they obscure or obfuscate this story? And once you understand that in the early 1900s, this country was going into trying to establish Jim Crow, and they were and part of establishing Jim Crow was having a superior race of people and an inferior race of people, and then trying to use science to prove that that fact, to kind of buttress their argument that you can treat these people indifferently, or treat them differently, or maybe we need to build more prisons than schools, kind of thing, because these people are a problem. And so what you had going on at that time was eugenics. Eugenics was a huge thing in the early 1900s. And so some of these people that was going around the South to prisons and to where they discovered lead belly here in Baton Rouge at Angola prison, they weren't there. A lot of these people weren't necessarily looking for, we think that they were there to record music that we could all sit back and put on a phonograph and enjoy or dance to. But I found that that's not what they were doing. They were eugenicists under the veil or the guise of a folklorist. And what they were really recording was the cranium, so to speak, of these people, of these chain gangers. And that's why they would go to prison. Why would you leave New York, where all the great musicians are, or leave the East Coast and come all the way down to a prison in Louisiana looking for somebody to play the guitar? It just don't make any sense. Or why would you be hanging around chain gangs recording people? Well, they believed at that time, like when we do this podcast, if you put it into Pro Tools or some kind of editor, when you're editing your video and you can see the waves, the waveform of the audio. Well, they had just discovered that they could create a waveform in the early 1900s, and they believed that when the waveform jumps up like that, that was a sexual deviant note or whatever, So they had all this crazy stuff in their head because they didn't really understand the science of waveforms and things for music. So they was recording these prisoners and recording chain gangers and downtrodden people like that, and taking it back to eugenic labs in Iowa and Indiana and was it North Carolina and these kinds of places, and Columbia and New York, and studying the thoughts, what they thought was the thoughts of these people. And so it just so happened that one or two of these recordings kind of, got out of the lab, so to speak, and people actually did like to dance to it. I thought it was a great song, and it made its way into popular culture. But they weren't trying to make commercial recordings. They were doing eugenic recordings, trying to capture the consciousness of Black people, really to show that here's proof that these people are degenerate or deviant or whatever, or criminally minded, and therefore we have to deal with them in such and such a way. And the last thing I'll say about the last note I'll make on that is in my book, I write about a mystery recording that Buddy Bolden, supposedly the first man of blues, some say the first man of jazz, but I say the first man of blues, his trumpet player. Well, there's rumors that he recorded, but nobody ever found the recording. And this would have been around the turn of the 19th century. Nobody ever found the recording, but based on all that I had researched and learned, if there had been a recording of Buddy Bolden made, it would have been by scientists. And when they heard his music, and they say he played so loud you could hear him across town on his horn and stuff. So I'm pretty sure he blew up their laboratory, phonograph or whatever, and they probably freaked out, and realized that he's dangerous. He's got a following, so we got to do something with this guy. And this guy was committed to the insane asylum in 1907, and we never heard him play his horn again, And so, because he was one of the first people to supposedly record, even though the recording is lost, if he did record, he would have been the first person to record. And I think he scared the hell out of those guys in their lab coats,
Yeah, that still happens to this day with new music, right? One of the other things that I think is just incredible is you found that loose-limbed black man who was playing music. You figured out who he was specifically, and then you timelined him right back to New Orleans. Talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to move on.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't find out who that person was.
Okay.
But that's not I don't believe that ever happened. That was W.C. Handy, who was W.C. Handy, came from for the times, a well-to-do family in Alabama. He was a school teacher, working as a school teacher in Alabama, and he ended up in Mississippi. But by the time, and he knew that the blues was this music out of New Orleans. He was a trumpet player. And the other curious thing is that who else is a blues trumpet player?
Buddy Bolden?
Well, people don't even like to call him. I mean, I hope that people recognize him as a blues trumpet player. Okay. But I'm just saying, in popular culture, W.C. Handy is supposed to be the father of the blues,
right? And
he played the trumpet.
Yeah.
But if you're the father, so where's the offspring? Where's the other trumpet players? It's just guitar players out there. So there was never another trumpet player if this blues thing was as they said it was. But that's kind of beside the point. But so you're asking me about him. So what it was is he was this real erudite guy, educated guy. But the white folks up in New York, they didn't like blues that was all sophisticated, so to speak. They liked the music they liked it more savage and downtrodden, they liked it funkier, He created that anecdote about the loose-legged whatever, because he knew he couldn't say that he was authentic. So he had to put himself as an eyewitness in the place. He said that, while he was doing an interview with a researcher from Harvard, a folklorist, and he told her this story, and this story kind of stuck. But that is not true. But the story that is true that you're talking about is that he was playing a gig in Mississippi with his band. He had a 9-piece band, and they took a break. And he was playing to white audiences, and the white audience wanted this black guy to get up there and perform. And he got up there and played, some blues, some Jelly Roll Morton type of blues, and played a real low down like the people like it. And they threw all kind of money on the stage. And that guy name I think his name was Leroy McCoy, but I know his name is McCoy. And he was from Louisiana, and he was singing a Jelly Roll Morton song. And so W.C. Handy saw that, and that's when he had the epiphany to decide that that's the kind of music I need to start playing, because I see that white folks like this music and I can make some money with it. Because he was trying to be Sosa, some marching band type of, dun, 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 that kind of stuff, Yeah. But these guys was playing this New Orleans, like you say, funky, but music, and that's what the people like. So that was a true story, and that person is a real person who inspired W.C. Handy. But when W.C. Handy biography came out in 1941, even though his manuscript said the name of the gentleman who was playing, the editors took all that out to make it look like W.C. Handy was the inventor of the music. But of course he was not. Yeah.
That's man, I really appreciate you writing that book and getting us started on that. Everybody should definitely get it. I love that book. Here's my question. I know you've got an audio book for it now. How come you didn't read it? Your voice is so beautiful and so it's appropriate, right? I mean, it's your story, it's your voice, where you're from.
This is the CD version of the book.
Yeah.
They put it out on CD. They put it out on hardback. It's on. There's an actor you're talking about. There's an actor that did an audio book for it, and he's brilliant,
Yeah.
And so it's on audio book. It's also a digital book, and I mean they did it in every form that anybody might want to get it, which means that the publishers, they thought it was worthy of those things, So
yeah,
I'm really really happy that they believed in in this book. And the name of the book, just to be clear, is called The Blues: The Authentic Narrative of My Music and Culture, and it's available worldwide. You can get it from Amazon, or you can, if you want an autographed copy, you can order it from our website. And,
nice.
and it should be in stores as well.
Yeah. It's just
so what was your apprehension to read it? Did they even ask you? Did they say, "Hey, Chris, do you want to narrate your own book?" Because people ask me that a lot, and I felt it was a little bit pretentious. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but the audio version is a great companion to the print version, what people like. But what was your reason? And the second part of that question is, the guy that read your book, have you talked to him and had a conversation with him?
No, they didn't ask me, and I haven't spoken to him other than through somebody where I just told them how wonderful I thought, he was. I haven't heard the whole book, but they sent me samples of other work that he'd done. He's done a lot of books, and so they sent me samples of other things he'd done, and they were just awesome. So I was just, humbled that he would do it. They didn't ask me to do it. And I'm glad they did not, because it would have been a little bit of a burden maybe, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's, I've done some acting and things. So I know about being in the studio and trying to, and then a lot of these words in French and things that I could write the word, but I can't pronounce it. I would have had to do a lot of homework. It would have been a really big job. So I just let the professionals handle it, and I think they did well by me.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about
how many books have you written, by the way, Scott?
My first book came out 4 years ago, and I'm working on 2 other books, but I'm also working on a full-length feature documentary. And I've also kind of fallen into the realm as an agent, where I've sold a few books for veteran authors. And I just signed a new client who is in the music business. He's the lighting director for AC/DC, Aerosmith, Slash, Guns N' Roses. He's been doing this for 30 years. It's such an amazing story. I was introduced to him by another veteran whose book I'd sold, and I just met him. He was down here in Southern California at the casino playing. Slash was playing. He goes, "Hey, you want to come down? I'm like 30 minutes away from your ranch." So we got to meet, and so I'm really fascinated by the whole story about this dude who is responsible for lighting up venues of 30,000 people. And when AC/DC and Brian Johnson and Angus Young say, "Let there be light," he floods them with 300,000 watts of light on the audience. And so yeah, like, I think, Pete, I finally found my match about people that stay busy, because people ask me about my schedule and how busy I am all the time writing and doing film and restaurants and charity and all this. But I love it that you've got this book that's telling the history of the music you play, which is so close to you. And it is easier to tell a story when you're enmeshed in that whole narrative. But in addition, I don't know, like 30 albums under your belt and acting and writing and all of that. I think my question is always, you know, what's next? You know, Pete always asks me, like, what's next? What are you going to do next? That's really the tough question, because that's what you did over your whole lifetime and career is, you know, how do you keep that fire going, and what are you doing now? And then what are you doing next?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I don't know about you, but you know, toward the end of writing my book, I was like, I'm never going to write another book again. Way too hard. I have a lot of respect for, you know, people like yourself and others who, you know, are writing books, and continue to do more and more books. I mean, I thought I would get into this thing, you know, and knock it out in about a year or two. Took me took me 10 years to. Now it's nonfiction, so you, like you say, you can't cut corners, and some things you find out is so shocking, then you have to think about it. You have to let it sit for a little while to find. It's like, I know this fact, but how do I convey this to the reader? How do I, you know, what do I cut away? What is important to include? So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. Sometimes you have to. I'll be working on something. I'll go on the road and take some time away from it and come back to it, and then I'll say I know how I want to deal with it.
Those are
But
great
yeah,
moments where you think this. Most people that will read this, when you find your voice and you think, man, people are never going to believe this. Like, they think that this only happens in the movies. And then there's parts of the story where it's exactly like it happens in the movies, or as culture believes it to be in real life. And those moments when you capture that, that's kind of a win as you're going through that process. And 10 years is a long time. And I'll ask you the same question. So you wrote this book yourself, because people ask me, they're like, did you write the book yourself? As if some knuckle dragging Marine infantry guy couldn't sit down at a computer and put words together in a sentence. But yeah, I wrote it all myself, and I assume you did as well.
yeah, that's what took so long. I had to find my voice, but that's also what was so important to do, you know, because uh, in all of my research, as far as I know, and I've scoured, you know, like rare books and everything. This is the first book that I know of that's actually written, you know, by a blues artist, as far as writing a history. What we have mostly is biographies, and they're usually written by an Englishman or somebody from England or whatever who's interested in the music, and they'll write a book about John Lee Hooker or something or whatever, you know. But you know, W.C. Handy, you know, even though he has a biography, he didn't write it. You know, his lawyer wrote the book, you know, that type of thing. And even a lot of slave narratives, you know, that what people tried to tell their truth. Um, a lawyer wrote the book. It's those are as told to stories. So I felt it was. I didn't start off saying, "Oh, I'm going to write it myself," but as I realized that I had to write it myself, because most of the trained, you know, sociologists or trained, you know, folklorists and people that would have wrote this book, I would have had to reprogram them. You know what I mean? Before they
Yeah.
could begin telling my story, because they've got their degree from Princeton and they're from Harvard and they studied their PhD, and it means that you really, really are messed up. You know, I'm really not. You know, there's a lot of work I'm gonna have to do with you if you've got your PhD from Harvard in folklore. You know, I mean, you're really messed up, because that's the problem. It all kind of goes back to Harvard University as the hub of this whole fiasco. I call it a fiasco. I call it a dystopia. But yeah, it was important for me to write it and actually write the words. So there's no ghostwriter. There is no nobody. Even when the editor would come and say these changes have to be made, that's me hunkered down, you know, for weeks and nights, you know, doing those edits and all that research that went on. I think the book has like 350 or so citations,
Wow.
which I hated some of those, because I'm like, why do I need to put did they put a reference when they got 1,000 books out there about Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil at the crossroads? Where's the reference for that? So why is my publisher telling me I need a reference? It's like, y'all, that's unfair, you know? I mean, but hey, it is what it is. but the references are there. So these are not just my thoughts. It's based. I had limitations as to. I gave myself limitations. I wasn't going to stray too far from the facts, as far as coming to conclusions about this thing or that thing.
Yeah, that's important because I love it too when I meet people that have that appreciation for the amount of time and that process. Because I could go into a Barnes and Noble today and see all the thousands of books. I probably wouldn't have the capacity to read most of them, but I absolutely respect what it took to get that one tiny 300-page book sitting on a shelf at that point, because it's a grind and it's
I
a
didn't know that. I
long
didn't know that
process.
going in. I couldn't appreciate it going.
No one tells you that. No one
No,
tells you that.
but I do now. So I don't know if I'll ever write again a nonfiction book like that. But I do kind of feel that I need to put this story in some type of children's book form. I've done a few children's books as a voiceover narrator, and collaborated with other people for different children's books. But I got to figure out how to break this thing down and tell it in a very simple way. Like some kid, some child getting their first, blues guitar kind of thing. So I might do something.
Novel.
That's right.
They love it. Kids love graphic novels.
Yeah, something like that.
Hey, so the thing you do well is you play the hell out of the guitar and sing some songs, and you put a new song out today, the Andromeda Blues. Let's talk about that and what you're working on currently.
Yeah, Andromeda Blues. That's I got a series that I'm doing where well, when you go online now, you think there's a lot of aspiring, during the shutdown, there's a lot of people that decided to buy a guitar, decided that they had the time to try to get on YouTube and learn a few notes and things. But I'm not the kind of person that really want to be an instructor, saying put your finger here and play there. So I created a series, and the first song from the series came out this morning, came out today, Andromeda Blues. And it's an instrumental, and there's no drums, no vocals. And it's just me, wailing away, playing this tune, Andromeda Blues. And so a person can, and there's a video that goes with it, like a music video. And a music video is all focused on the guitar, of course, my fingers and things. So, hey, man, the fans out there and people that are aspiring, want to learn these licks, they can rewind and play that as much as they want. But I'm not here to instruct them as to this is how you make that chord, or this is what, I'm not giving all of that. So I decided to do a series like that. And I think I can get maybe 50 songs. Every week I'm going to be releasing a video and a new song. And these are all going to be instrumentals. And I'm just naming it from astrology, So Andromeda Blues, and I'm just using those names, and it's like that.
Super easy to find, Chris.
Do you write music as well?
Now, do you mean write it in notation,
right,
or you mean do I write my own song?
Like write sheet music with the notes and everything. Because I know some artists, I'm always fascinated by that. It's like, nope, I never learned to do that. It's almost, I think it's everybody's got a different medium that they convey the art in or their talent. And I'm fascinated when I meet a brilliant musician, especially that they either do or they don't, or how they learn to do that, or how do you teach that? Maybe it is a video and they watch that through visual learning.
Yeah, I think visual learning, and I answer that two ways. Well, the first thing is that no, I don't really write music, but I can. If I had to, I could do it, but it's pointless in my profession. It's pointless in blues unless you're writing for horns or arranging for a horn section or strings or something. But for a rhythm section, I usually do power trio. So for me to write out what the drummer should play or the bass player should play, I'll just dictate to them, hey, that's C, that's G, whatever, and they can make their own notes if they need them. But I could develop. I know I started off playing the trumpet in the marching band as a child, so I learned how to read music. But when it comes to the guitar is just not a music instrument that you just don't, that's not how it works. The second way I would answer that is I was, as far as learning a music like blues, it's a cultural expression. So it's like if you're a Native American and you want to learn, some of the calls and the dances and the things like that, you got to get in that circle. You got to, an elder or somebody got to bring you in and kind of, show you the ropes. So you need like a mentor or something. You got to be there, you know. So same thing with the blues. You got to be in the juke joint, and you got to carry that guy's guitar, or go to the store and get him some whiskey or whatever he needs. You know what I mean? And hook him up so that you can be in his presence, and maybe some of that might rub off on you. So it's really a cultural expression, but it can be the blues can be a symphony. It can be symphonic music. I mean, Rhapsody in Blue, is a blues. Gershwin. In the first, and I write about that in my book. In the first book that came out in 1925 with what would you call that? I forget the proper term, but the first kind of like canon of blues songs included Rhapsody in Blue and Gershwin and stuff like that. But then in the 1960s, as folk music and prison songs became the defining criteria for blues, being authentic or being a plantation, cotton picker or something like that, then that's what made you a blues person. Then Gershwin was taken out in later revisions of the book. So the book is still out there, but a lot of the original songs that was in it in 1925 have been removed to kind of, I don't know why they would do that, but I guess they do that to try to sell some books or hook up with popular culture in some way. Or maybe there was people that was criticizing the fact that was a part of it. But Gershwin is, he did an opera, Porgy and Bess. That's a blues opera. So the blues can be an opera. The blues can be symphonic. The blues can be, just a man and his guitar or whatever, So it's not limited to some 12-bar thing. That's a whole nother story how that came about, but that's really not the definition of this genre of music. No other music has like like if you ask how many bars is rock, how many bars is that, or is it what chords this is how you play rock music? That wouldn't make any sense. You got Electric Light Orchestra, you got those boys from Canada, the Red Barchetta Boys. What
Rush.
Yeah, you got Rush. You got all kinds of music, man, that fits into what we call rock. But when it comes to blues, that's the other myth that I needed to shatter, is these narrow little definitions of what make you an authentic blues artist, meaning that you had to pick some cotton or had to have been in prison or be downtrodden or something like this. And then you couldn't be caught having a clarinet in your band, or you were talking about someone playing the cello. These things are all of a sudden not allowed in this blues. You can't paint with those colors. And so as an artist, I'm like, well, why wouldn't, as an artist, I'm asking these questions, well, why not? But then I found out that people did paint with those colors and people did all of this stuff already. But, it has been kind of miscategorized and things like that. And I'll just give you guys already know this, but the easiest one, for people of our generation, to understand is rock and roll, meaning that when Little Richard, played it, it was blues or rhythm and blues or whatever. But then when, some English band play it, it's rock and roll. It's same notes, same lyrics, same song, same everything, but you couldn't get it played on FM radio. So, FM radio was kind of like an apartheid radio system where even if you could prove to them, hey man, but that's my tune. I wrote this song. You still weren't allowed to be played next to AC/DC, next to, Led Zeppelin, next to people who are actually playing your song. So it really isn't a distinction between the rock and roll of the 60s, 50s, 70s, and the blues. They just created those genres based on race. There's no other explanation for it. Because if we're talking about writing sheet music, if they write the notes down, they're the exact same notes on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's.
I think there's your second book. Happy People Play the Blues. There you go. Shatter the myth.
Shatter the myth.
You can't be happy and play the blues.
The idea behind the lessons stuff, that's so that like we're able to watch you play the Andromeda Blues and kind of work on our finger position. Is that sort of the concept, or will there be like a more detailed? I know you don't want to teach us the guitar, but is that the idea? Is to watch you play and then learn?
Well, I know that there's people out there that write to me and they ask me, why haven't I done, these type of videos, or they would like me to do it. And there's a company or two that even called me and tried to hire me to, everybody that's on YouTube, usually they work with some kind of company, you know what I mean? It's not just them putting up videos. Usually it's it's a whole thing going on behind the scenes, but I didn't want to do that. But there's a market for it. There's people that want that, and I don't mind sharing it. I'm not necessarily the guy that want to turn my back, and play for the audience, so can't nobody see my fingers. But here's where we are. Where we are in this culture right now is, and I'm trying to learn and trying to keep up, with social media. I'm pretty slow to it. But I've just started to get serious about YouTube and social media and things like this. And so in 2022, I'm taking it serious. But the thing is, you have to constantly create content. You have to constantly make music videos. You have to constantly put things out. But I can't write and record a great single, every week. You know what I mean? I get lucky every once in a while, but I'm not gonna get lucky every week and be blessed that way. So, but you got to constantly put stuff out there. So knowing, how Miles Davis did it. Miles Davis would just belch, and that's a song. Hey man, what's it called, Miles? It's called, he can give whatever the fuck you want to call it, whatever. So Miles, they just played, and then they figure out the name of the song later and stuff. There was no second take and all of that. So I'm gonna do a whole series where it's just instrumental music where I'm playing and put it out as an actual single, as an actual song. And after I make about maybe 20 of these instrumentals, and then I'll create like a YouTube playlist, which is really like a playlist is the new album. And so then you can sit back and watch like 20 different songs, just guitar playing, but they're 3-minute songs. Yeah. And so it's just like a piano player might play a lot of classical instrumental music, and that's a suite or an album. So it's like that. But in the meantime, I will be so I'll be putting those out every week. And I don't even know what to call them. That's why I'm using the astrology, what it's got like 150 or so. The next week, Untitled Blues, I think, is coming out. So I might not go alphabetically, but I'm just gonna call them after the stars. But but my official, music videos and my official singles, you might see those like every maybe 8 weeks, every 2 months, something like that.
They just found 4.4 new million galaxies. So all kinds of things need names too. You can make some shit up. You're gonna have to use it.
All right. Well, I mean, shit, man. Jimi Hendrix used to just tune his guitar and they put that out on an album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But the other thing about this digital world, this metaverse, is that the more, you know, if my catalog of music have maybe 1,500 songs floating out there in the metaverse, you know, that's a lot better than having, you know, 20 or 30.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, a lot of people want instrumental music under their documentaries. You know, some people want instrumental music under their videos and things like that. So people can license, you know, these instrumental pieces. They actually serve a real function, you know, as far as how they can be used. You know, they are actual recordings, actually singles, and I'll later collect them as an album or playlist. But I get requests all the time, you know, for people wanting me to go back and remix a song and take out the vocals and things so they can fit it under a documentary or in a film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's good to have a body of instrumental songs.
How do you protect that? Is it under a label or is it under your name? Do you copyright each one that you put out there? Is that a process that, as you learn every platform in social media, which is overwhelming most days for many, how do you protect your work? That's important.
That's a great question, man. That is the question of the day. And I think it's for all of us, you know, everybody that's podcasts, everybody that's creating something. You know, it's like the new barcode is kind of like a content ID or like a stamp that the algorithm out there can put on your work. But first, like right now, I released my new video, but the algorithm don't know I'm Chris Thomas King.
Yeah.
So I'm still not fighting with, but I've requested with YouTube to give me an official artist channel, you know, and I don't have an artist channel. So my little daughter, you know, she might put something on TikTok, you know, where she's dancing or something, but to somebody's song, but the algorithm knows that she's not the copyright owner or the person, you know what I mean? She's just somebody, you know, having fun. And YouTube thinks I'm just somebody having fun. They don't realize I'm actually Chris Thomas King. And I'm like, how do I prove this to you guys?
Yeah.
You can't talk to somebody. There's no person to speak with. But I'm going back and forth with my distributor, trying to prove to them that I am actually Chris Thomas King. And so once I get certified through these, and you got to do that with every platform.
Yep.
You know, you got to get that little check mark by you with Twitter. Yeah. But once you get certified as being the real person, all of a sudden, when somebody see one of your videos that maybe somebody else put up, then the algorithm starts saying maybe you like more from Chris Thomas King. You know what I mean? And then you start showing up in these search engines. But right now I don't show up because I'm not me. I'm me in the real world. I mean, in the real world, I'm a platinum artist. You know what I mean? But in the metaverse, I'm invisible.
This is such a thing. This is
So I got to get all these. I'm learning this stuff, but I have to get all of these different platforms that I'm on to certify me as being actually me, because I have lots of videos out there that other people have put up that I don't have anything to do with. I don't make any money from them. I didn't tell anybody to take it down, but it may come to that where I start, you know, once I get certified as being me, then I can say, well, I want to take that video down, or I want to monetize it, or, you know, whatever. But it's a whole new world. And just because you were somebody in the real world, when you step into the metaverse, you got to get recertified, man.
Yeah. And the last thing we need you doing is like establishing your copyright right on YouTube and then on TikTok. We need you with the guitar in your hand, you know? It's a shame that we have to focus on these other things. Yeah,
I'm learning this stuff. I mean, I came up, you know, when we were, you know, physical CDs where you had barcodes, and, you know, people had to unlock the CD for you before you went out the store, or the alarms would go off, you know?
Yeah.
But right now, I have a store, but people can just come in the store and just get whatever they want off the shelves. And,
great,
you know, analogy. So, I mean, I'm trying to get it together, but I think it's not it's not something that's not going to happen. It's just a process.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning about it, and and I'm learning about NFTs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
I've got some people who could talk to you offline about that stuff too, the NFT part of it. So if you're interested, some actual pros in that. More importantly, though, if anybody gets a chance to see Chris live, do not miss that chance. Whether he's he's done all kinds of things, so it's not just he is an actor. I loved you in Lackawanna Blues, and Chris was basically on stage in a one man play, but he was there also, and was the soundtrack. He was like the live music and the essence of music, and the story is tied around it. It was so incredible, man. You do such a great job. Do you have any stage things? Are you guys I know you tried to do Lackawanna Blues, but then the COVID thing killed it off, but what are you gonna do on the road?
Yeah, we had a good run out there in LA, and it was nice that you could come out to the show. We were out there in LA for about 3 months in downtown LA with the play. And then I was the music director, and did all the music on stage for the play. And then we were booked in Boston and somewhere in New Jersey. And then that's when COVID kind of shut all the theater stuff down. I think theaters and music festivals and things are just starting to get back on track. So
yeah,
I haven't played live, in front of an audience really in almost 2 years. So I've had some time to, in that time, like my book came out in September, I think it was late August or September. So once that came out, I was hoping to get out on a book tour, and just couldn't make that happen, because of COVID. But things are opening up. But New Orleans Jazz Festival is going to happen this year. It looks like Mardi Gras is going on right now, so New Orleans isn't shutting down. So things are getting somewhat back to normal. But in the meantime, like I said, I've been learning, had the time to kind of relearn the new music business and learn some things about the metaverse and all of that. So, and I do have a catalog of music, and trying to protect that catalog. Right now, my publishing company, controls about 250 songs, and just going to try to get that up to about 500 in the next year or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. What I don't want to keep it too long, but Scott, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I just wanted, I know we're wrapping up, but Pete, thank you for making this introduction. I think I was out of town when Pete went up to see you in LA, and always honored to jump in the studio with Pete. And I think it's been almost 5 years, Pete, since we met. And with Mark, Pete just posted a picture of me, Mark Valley, and himself on social media, sitting right here in my studio. And I was like, wow, that was, I'd like him to say it was the first podcast I ever did live. And Pete's got over, what is it, 1,500 shows now? I can't even keep up, man. It's nuts.
1,500 by the end of the year, probably. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, it's
like Chris,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Man. And I'm looking forward to talking with you more, Chris. I mean, I don't have any other questions, but what a pleasure to meet you and listen to some of your wisdom. And we'll be down in New Orleans in July too, so hopefully you're down there. We'll talk more about that later, but yeah, just a real honor, man. Good to meet you, brother.
Yeah, great to meet you too, man. I really enjoyed speaking to both of you guys today, and thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully I'll be in town when you guys come down to New Orleans, and we'll do this again, maybe.
Yes, sir.
All right, stand by. Let me wrap this thing up. Stand by. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly.